Question 24. Giorgio Italian Market bought $5,800 worth of merchandise from food suppliers and signed a 90-day 6% promissory note for $5,800. Food suppliers journal entry to record the collection on maturity date is going to be what? Well, it's going to be, we're going to collect all the note, which we're going to credit out the notes receivable for $5,800. We're going to collect the interest of $87. The two together will be a total debit to cash for $58.87. Number 25. Oh, and by the way, you'll have to do the calculation there of the $5,800 times 90 days times 6% to come up with that $8,700 interest. Number 25. Jack's Recording Studio purchased $8,400 in electronic components from Music World. Jack's signed a 60-day 6% promissory note for $8,400. Music World's journal entry to record the sales transaction is as follows. We're going to debit notes receivable for $8,400 and we're going to credit sales for $8,400. Number 26. Uniform Supply accepted an $18,000 90-day 8% note from Tracy Janitorial on October the 17th. What entry should Uniform Supply make on January the 15th of the next year when the note is paid? So we're going to have to, and we should also assume that the December 31st fiscal year end, we made the proper entry to accrue interest. That's what you should assume. So here we go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go from October 17th to December 31st, and we're going to figure out how much interest is going to be earned, not paid, but earned in that time period. And that would be interest accrued at December 31st would be $18,000 principal times 8% times 75 days. From here, from October 17th to 31st is 75 days divided by 360, which is $300. So you have to assume that interest was accrued for $300. You also have to calculate how much interest has been earned from December 31st until the note is due, and the note, it looks like it's due during January because it's a 90-day note. So you have another 15 days worth of interest. Well, that's when the note is due on January the 15th. So 15 days of interest would be 18% times 8% times 15 over 360, which is another $60 worth of interest. So this company is going to collect the note, which is the principal, $18,000. They're also going to collect the interest that was due them as of December 31st, which is going to be $300. And they're also going to collect the interest that they've earned in the new year, which is another 15 days interest, which is another $60. So they're going to collect a total of 60 plus 300 plus 18,000, or 18,360. And the way you record all that is to debit cash for the total, 18,360. Credit interest revenue, that's for the new year, of $60. Credit interest receivable, that's from the interest you accrued as of last year and now are going to get your payment for that. They no longer owe you that, and that'll be a credit for $300. And they no longer owe you on the note because you're going to get that money for the principal, which is $18,000. Number 27. Uniform Supply accepted a $6,200 90-day 12% note from Tracy Janitorial on October 17th. If the note is dishonored, that is, they don't pay it, what entry should Uniform Supply make on January the 15th of the next year? Well, normally they would take in cash, but since they're not taking in any cash and the note has been at maturity, it means no more interest is going to be accrued on the note. Then you'd figure out, first of all, how much is the total principal and interest on this note. Well, the total interest and principal would be the note, which would be a principal of $6,200, and the interest received, or excuse me, the interest earned from 17th of October until December 31st would have been $155, and the interest from January the 1st to January 15th is another $31. And so all of this is not going to be paid, so all of it gets put back onto an accounts receivable. And this is not the real world, but that's the way it is in this textbook. It all goes back to something that doesn't bear interest any longer, which is an accounts receivable, for the total of a debit to accounts receivable for $63.86, a credit to interest revenue because you've earned it even though you haven't got it, $31, a credit to interest receivable for $155 for the interest that you accrued, that is earned as of December 31st, that you have earned but not collected, and then a credit to the note because the note now is no longer a valid instrument because it's been matured on the 15th day of January. So that is going to be turned into an accounts receivable for the total of $63.86. Number 28. Valley Spa purchased $7,200 in plumbing components from Tubman Company. Valley Spa Studios signed a 30-day 10% promissory note for $7,200. If the note is dishonored, what is the amount due on the note? Okay, it's the principal plus the interest. So it'll be the principal, excuse me, the interest of $7,200 at 10% for 30 over 360, which is $60 worth of interest. You'll add that $60 worth of interest to the principal of $7,200, and the total that's due will be $7,260. Number 29. Valley Spa purchased $10,800 worth of plumbing and components from Tubman Company. Valley Spa Studios signed a 60-day 10% promissory note for $10,800. If the note is dishonored, what is the journal entry to record the dishonored note? Well, let's see. You had a $10,800 note, and we have total interest on that note of $10,800 times 10% times 30 over 360 times 60 over 360, and that will be a total amount of interest of $180 plus the principal of $10,800. So the total that they're going to be owing on that note, principal and interest, will be $10,980. So the interest in this situation, let's see here, 60 days. Let's see. We're going to put back on the books an accounts receivable that represents the. Hold on, we have a typo here. It looks like we've got a typo. It looks like we'll put back on the books a total accounts receivable for $10,980, which is the principal plus the interest, and we will show the interest that we've earned of $180, and we'll also have to take the note off the books, but that's an error right there. This should be, and I'll change it right here, this should be $10,800 because that's the principal value of the note. So remove the note, which was $10,800, credit interest receivable for $180. You've earned it, but you haven't got it. And then debit the sum of these two, which would be a debit to accounts receivable because you're putting it all back on a receivable because the note's mature, $10,980. Number 30. On July 9, Mifflin Company receives a $800 120-day 9% note from customer Peyton Summers as payment on account. Compute the amount due at maturity for the note. Well, it will be the interest, which we got to figure out, which would be $800 times 9% times 120 over 360, which is interest equaling $264, plus the principal of $8,800. So the total due on this note will be $9,064. Number 31. On July the 9th, Mifflin Company receives a $10,400 90-day 8% note from customer Peyton Summers as payment on account. That is, we had an old accounts receivable and we're turning it into a note. And we're doing that because we can get interest on it and it's more collectible in court. What entry should be made on July the 9th to record the receipt of the note? That is turning it, the old accounts receivable, into a note. Well, you should debit notes receivable for $10,400 and credit accounts receivable for 10-4. Number 32. On July the 9th, Mifflin Company receives a $9,000 90-day 6% note from customer Peyton Summers as payment on account. What entry should be made at the maturity date, assuming the maker pays in full? Well, he's going to pay a total of $9,135, which is interest figured like this: 9,000 times 6% times 90 over 360, which equals $135 interest plus the principal of 9,000. So he's going to end up paying $91.35, and you will record a debit to cash for $91.35, a credit to interest revenue for $135, and a credit to notes receivable for $9,000. Number 33. On November the 19th, Nicholson Company receives a $19,800 60-day 10% note from a customer as payment on account. What adjusting entries should be made on the December 31st year-end to record interest that should be accrued, that is earned but not received? That's what accrued means. So the calculation will be 19.8 times 10% times how many days were from November the 19th to December 31st, and that's a total of 42 days. So it's 19.8 times 10% times 42 over 360, which is $231. So we will debit interest receivable, $231, and we will credit interest revenue for $231. Number 34. On November the 1st, Ofram Company accepted a $10,900 90-day 17% note from customer to settle an account, that is, to settle an accounts receivable. What entry should be made on November the 1st to record the note acceptance? Well, that would be a debit to notes receivable for $10,900 and a credit to get the old accounts receivable off the books, so a credit to accounts receivable for $10,900.